Now we're going to talk about the drawer fronts, and I'm going to take these out to make them easier to work with. The first thing I'm going to do is remove this handle, and it's attached and held on by these two screws that are on the inside of the drawer, and they're really easy to remove. Now some drawer fronts are just glued on, in which case you really can't remove them, and you have to just take out the entire drawer and paint them just like they are. Otherwise, they're attached with screws. And in that case, you can just remove the screws at the same time you remove the handle. Just keep those separate and tape them inside the drawer, just so you know exactly what goes with what when you go to put it back together. Now you also want to number your drawer fronts. Sometimes they don't all look the same, and sometimes they do all look the same. So this is drawer 1, and remember, tape over that number so that you don't paint over that number. But none of this part of the drawer will be showing, so you really don't have to worry much about the piece of tape and the fact that that paint won't be on the other side of it. Now next, as always, we have to tape. It's very important. You don't want to paint anything that you're not actually trying to paint. You want a nice smooth line here. You want this to look like, or your cabinets in your kitchen to look like, that's the way they showed up from the factory, not like you did a paint job and painted the wall along with it. So we're going to take a piece of tape and tape off right next to our cabinet. Sometimes this can be a little tough. Just keep working with it. If you go along like this and you see that you have some paint showing still, instead of peeling that paint up or tape up over and over again, you can just take off a new piece, tuck it in right where that was showing, and voila, it's going to be perfect when we take that off. We're also going to tape underneath the countertop. This may not seem like a really big deal, but there are times when this does show, and if you're working in a customer's home as a professional, it's very important. They will check things like this, and it does sort of give you more credibility or make you look more professional if you're not adding any paint where it shouldn't be anywhere, even in places where it might not be seen otherwise. Now we're also going to tape the hinges. Remember, I talked about not messing these up or changing them at all, and it does make it a lot easier when it's time to rehang the doors. Unless you are changing hinges altogether, then you want to leave these in place as much as you possibly can. Now, you have to consider you are going to be painting right back here. So rather than closing these hinges and taping them, which creates a place where you really are going to not be able to get your paintbrush in there, you want to leave it open and tape everything off so that it doesn't get paint on that hinge. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to tape on the inside of here. Sometimes a piece of furniture or a cabinet needs paint in here, but you might want to use something a little bit different than the pretty finish you're doing outside. If there's water damage or something here, maybe something that would seal that or a new piece of wood would be a better idea. In the meantime though, what we want to do on this one, because we're not painting inside at all, is still leave this nice clean edge where only what is finished now is what we are painting. So the difference between this and this is finished and this is not. This is just a regular piece of press board. So what I'm going to do is take a long piece of tape and simply tape the whole inside so that when I'm finished painting this and take this off, we haven't gotten any extra paint where it's not supposed to be. We're also going to do the same thing on the floor. Sometimes it's great to have just an extra paintbrush so you can brush away any dust before you tape so that the tape will stick to the floor or the cabinet surface and not come off. Now if this is grouted, which this is, it has little grout spaces, make sure that the tape goes all the way down in those grout holes, because Paint, of course, is liquid, and as you paint along this edge, the liquid will seep underneath where the tape is not pressed down thoroughly, and then you'll have a nice spot of paint there that you really don't want to have to clean up. That's pretty hard to clean off of grout. So just seal your tape completely all the way down. Okay, now you're ready. You've taped everything off, you have a drop cloth down, and you're ready to go on making everything look like it's one piece. Since you're painting over this and you're going to sand it, really anything that you do to fill holes or gaps is not going to show after you've painted. So for instance, if you had hinges that left holes in your cabinet base, this is the cabinet base, then you want to fill those if you're changing to an inside hinge, or if the new hinges are not going to go back in those same holes again. And to fill any holes that are in wood, you need a wood filler. And this comes from your local hardware or home improvement store. And wood filler will fill in those gaps or holes, and then it won't shrink. It will allow you to be able to sand after that, and it'll be nice and smooth for you to paint over. Now the other thing that might happen is there might be gaps between your cabinet sections, or where some piece like this piece and this have separated or shrunk. And what you want to use in that case is caulk. So you just put a little bead of caulk along there and rub it down with your finger, and then it will be smooth, and also this is sandable. So if that's the case as well, underneath where your countertop meets, or any other place where you feel like there's just a gap that needs to be filled in, just fill it in, but allow it to dry for a while before you sand. All of these things have instructions on the packages that you should follow.